Hey everyone, this is my review of Trenton 1776, published by Worthington. This is actually the first edition. I've played it this evening, so I thought I'd do a quick review. If we have a look at the back of the box, the complexity is 3 out of 10. It's mostly a two-player game, but it's suitable for solitaire, and I've played it solitaire this evening. It is game 2 in their campaigns of the American Revolution, a historic period that I enjoy very much. And yeah, let's have a look at the components of the game. So first up, the rule book. There aren't many pages to the rules. 7, and then the 7th page is the campaigns or the scenarios. So only 6 pages. It is a very straightforward block-based war game. Movement straightforward, combat straightforward. There's a little bit of Chrome with crossing the Delaware River and river crossings in general. The turn sequence is very straightforward. I've played, when I bought this is the first game in the series I actually bought, but it's the second game in the series. If you've played the other games, you'll be familiar with how this game works. It is very straightforward. I found the rules pretty well written. Didn't have any problems with them at all. Very clear. There are there's 2 scenarios and it's the main campaign. Actually, when I normally play either the Christmas Surprise, which I've played this evening as we are in December. There's also Bag in the Fox as well. They play a little bit quicker. You can play those comfortably in an hour. The main campaign is a couple of hours, so very straightforward. So I've got the game set up. This is the Christmas Surprise setup. So we've got a lot of the continental forces down the bottom of the map. Here's the Delaware. And the British forces spread out and a lot at the top end of the map here. The game, this map is card. I believe in the more recent editions it's actually a mounted map, but this is a first edition. The blocks and the stickers are pretty hard wearing. I've had this game for quite a while now, played it many times because it's quite quick and easy and straightforward to set up and play, and it covers, the American Revolution, which is one of my favourite historical topics. Gameplay wise, it's very straightforward. If you played block games, you'll be familiar with how these games play. I've set the blocks up down facing the camera so you can see. Normally there'd be, your opponent wouldn't know the contents of the blocks. If you're playing it solo like me, then it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Movement's very straightforward. You have leaders, so there's Washington down here. Top of the map we've got Howe and Cornwallis. Grant's over there. Lee's I think he's just off camera a little bit. They have a number of blocks that they can activate with them as they move around the map, and a number of movement areas. So, for example, Washington can move 3, whereas Howe can move 1. Washington can command 7 blocks, whereas Howe can command 9 blocks. So there's a little bit of asymmetry to the game, which is quite good. Combat's very straightforward. You roll the number of dice for the block. Infantry need 6 and artillery need a 5 and 6. If the British get a 1, the militia, if the Americans have got any militia, then they'll retreat and do a runner. The combat is very streamlined, very effective. In this particular scenario, what I like about this scenario is that the British forces are quite spread out, so the British player has to kind of try and consolidate their forces. The Patriot player can push really hard towards the top end of the map, which is quite satisfying. Like I said, set up and play for this particular scenario an hour. It's very straightforward game. I would say there's just enough historical content in here for me. It is a light game, there's nothing terribly complex. Like I said, there's a few little areas of Chrome, historical Chrome, not many at all. The map is very straightforward. It's very clear the different zones you can move to. The contents of the blocks are very clear, very easy to read game. All the rules are very straightforward. what you end up doing a lot, I have found playing it, is that you amalgamate your forces into 2 or 3 larger forces, and then you have quite large battles. One of the interesting things about the battles is that if the losing side decides to retreat, they can retreat back, and they may take losses as a result of that. So the battles don't take very long. It's normally quite decisive which side's winning. It is a little dicey in the sense that if you've got a handful of blocks here, let's say, pick one that's in camera. So this block, this sort of small army, which is a small army with no leader, they're going to be rolling 3 dice for those 2 and 3 dice for that. So it's quite a dice chucky sort of game, and it can go backwards and forwards, but it's very streamlined. So yeah, overall, I think it is a game for people who have an interest in the American Revolution. It's a game that doesn't take long to set up and play. It's a very straightforward, streamlined game. You'll have no problems with any of the rules. There is a level of tactics and strategy, because you have a number of action points and you don't have enough action points to do everything you want to do, is the long and short of it. So you have to pick and choose what you want, especially at the start game, like we've got set up here. The British player, for example, is going to have a maximum of 4 action points. To move one of these forces, for example, costs a different number of action points depending on the contents. You really want to activate your leaders because they activate everything with them. As you can see here, there's a lot of formations that don't have leaders. So there's that element of strategy to it, working out the best option. And as I said, moving around the map, the leaders that only have a movement of 1, they tend to be able to have larger forces, but they can only move 1 zone at a time. So it's this great sort of strategy of movement within the game, which I really enjoy. So yeah, if you're interested in the American Revolution, you want a game that covers this particular part of it, and a game that you can play in an evening, that's streamlined, very straightforward. If you played someone who's never played before, you'll be able to explain the rules in 10 or 15 minutes. If you've played it a lot, you'll probably have quite a distinct advantage, I would say, even though it's quite dice throwy. So just bear that in mind. But I've enjoyed this series of games very much. I have, I think, all the games in the series now. And they hit that sweet spot for me. So good stuff, and thanks for watching.